Hey, how's it going? As some of you may know, I work at a summer camp, and some of you also may know that I built trail at the summer camp, which is how I got into trail design and creation and care, and that's kind of been my passion the last several years of my life. One of the other things I also get to do is do some tree work here at the camp. This year, through some friends, we temporarily acquired a portable sawmill, one that can cut dimensional lumber, so like things like 2x4s or 4x6s or 4x4s, or basically whatever dimension of wood we want to make out of just logs. So of course we're thrilled at the idea of being able to have a sawmill so we can produce our own lumber, especially with trail design stuff. A lot of the bridges we build are made out of large scale timbers, like big 24-inch diameter logs, or we make 5-inch thick or 3-inch thick planks. So we can't really go out and buy all this stuff. It's very expensive to buy large dimension lumber. And because we have such a huge property here, we're able to produce that lumber ourselves. In the past, we had used things like portable chainsaw sawmills, which were time consuming but very portable. They produced the product that we wanted, but just not in the time frame we wanted them in. And eventually, one of my friends had a sawmill and was willing to let us use it for the summer. So today we're going to produce some timber for the sawmill to mill down into dimensional lumber. So basically what I'm trying to say is I will be cutting some trees down, and I guess I'm going to bring you guys along for the adventure. We're in the forest now, and if you take a look around, you'll notice that our forests are pretty overgrown here, and you can probably tell that the sunlight doesn't really get to the forest floor, and you can't really see anywhere. And that has a lot to do with unsustainable logging practices and some species of trees going back too quickly. So in order to aid that, and also to produce lumber that we need for building things out of wood for the camp, we on occasion chop down trees. So this is a tree that I have picked to cut down, and if you look closely at the very top of the canopy of the tree, there are no branches with living pine needles on it, and that has a lot to do with this Doug fir being dead, and it's going to come down eventually, so we want to take it down before it falls down so we can use the wood. Also, if you notice along the trunk, there are these little fungi growing on, little mushroom looking things, which means that there's already rot beginning to happen within the tree. So we're basically very close to losing this tree for usable lumber. So the first thing I do when I'm trying to cut a tree down is I look around to make sure there's no property that I will damage, like someone's house or a power line or a parking lot full of cars. Obviously we're in the woods, so there's none of that here, so I'm good. The next thing is this tree safe to cut down? If I cut this tree down, is it going to fall on top of me? Is it going to fall into other trees and get stuck halfway to the ground after it's been cut? And of course, the next thing I have to ask is, can I cut it down? Do I feel safe cutting it down? And luckily, this tree is actually not bad. It's not near anything that it can damage. My car is parked, way over there, so I don't need to worry about it. This tree is in a forest that's a little overgrown, but because it's so big, the weight of the tree is just gonna bring it straight down to the ground. And then of course the next thing is I can definitely cut this tree down. It's not something that I've done a lot of, but I've definitely done a lot of tree cutting, and I think it's gonna be pretty interesting. Wow! That went so as planned. Yes! Good job! Alright. Alright, woo! Alright, so Jacob and I are safe, we're intact. We had a spectacular show to watch, and the tree, of course, is on the ground safely as well. It fell exactly where I wanted it to, and if you actually look up into the canopy of the other trees, I didn't break off too many other branches, so I didn't cause a lot of damage or stress to the forest itself by removing this tree. So this is overall is a huge success. And of course, trees behind me, and let's look at the stump here. The hinge worked perfectly. This is the wood fibers that actually the tree pivoted down on. And then of course you can see these rings. We've already counted these rings. There's about 68 of them. Towards the center here, it gets a little confusing, the early years of this tree. And then they were pretty dry, which is why these rings are pretty small. At 11 years old or so, it had a really, really wet year, as if this, it rained a ton in this forest. And then progressively as it got older, we had some pretty good years of rain. We had a really decade good of rain here towards the end of its life. And so we know that this tree didn't die from lack of resources or competition with other trees. In fact, this was probably the big tree and all these other small trees. It died due to rot and some of the fungus growing on it. So we're gonna go ahead and measure the tree really quick with our tape measure, and then we're gonna figure out what the other end looks like. So now we've measured the tree. We're about 100 feet overall altogether in terms of height of the tree. I actually didn't measure the whole entire tree because the top snapped off on the way down and we can't seem to find it. But we estimated over 100 feet. 75 about to this point here, and then we got 3 chunks of the top of the tree that just snapped off on the way down. Probably not every section of this tree can be used because there's so much rot in it, but I'd say at least the bottom half we can definitely use for some really great lumber. And this is the hard part. Now that it's on the ground, it's all safe, now we gotta clean up. So that's all I got for now. Hopefully this video was interesting and insightful. Sorry if I just kind of geek out about tree stuff and trail work because just what I know. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.